But it's clear in Act 4, Riot is trying to redefine the meta. We have changes to Yoru and Iso in this patch, and I know that there's more coming. We also have a massive nerf to the Outlaw, so let's get into it and look at these changes. Starting with Iso, and he's getting a buff to his double tap. The speed of equipping your weapon after unequipping double tap is now instant. The reason this is such a big buff is because double tap's wind up is 1 second, and that is the same as a rifle equip time, which is also 1 second. So that's 2 seconds before you can shoot your gun after using double tap, and that is getting halved. This now puts double tap into a speed where you can use it reactively rather than strictly only proactively, because it would take so long to wind up. I see this coming into a play a lot where you're getting an unexpected push and you need to quickly get the double tap and shield going, and now you should be able to do that pretty much every time. I really like this buff because it gives Iso more agency and makes him feel smoother to play, because Iso can feel a bit rigid at times. The only problem is Phoenix is so dominant and so strong right now that Iso's trying to fight for that same spot, so I don't expect this to have too much impact on the current meta, but I can see Iso popping up more if we get an eventual Phoenix nerf. And the second agent getting buffed is Yoru. His gate crash active beacon duration is increasing from 15 seconds to 20 seconds. So not quite back to what it was at 30 seconds pre 12.08, but this is handy. 15 seconds felt quite short for an agent that is more focused on macro play as a duelist, as that's his kind of niche that he carved out. 15 seconds makes it really hard to do anything macro related. You just don't have enough time to work with because you've got to account for travel time. So if you send off your gate crash somewhere, it's got to take 5-10 seconds to reach its location, then you only have 5-10 seconds to use it. So with a little bit more of a buffer, that is going to be helpful for the Yoru one tricks, but I don't see this having too much of an impact on ranked. It's much more of a pro targeted buff. But he is also receiving a much requested update to his fake out. To further satisfy his deception fantasy, clones from fake out will now hold Yoru's last equipped weapon instead of defaulting to his strongest weapon. Now, all things considered, this is a minor buff, but I will get so much joy out of watching clips of people manipulating this with their creativity to set up their versions and trick people based on what gun they're holding. Oh, the Yoru is holding a knife, so it's not the clone, but it is the clone, and then you're walking behind them, you stab them in the back. Streamer's got a clip farm with this. It's going to be good for Valorant content. I'm all for it. Even outside of that, I'm just all for these kind of changes in general that allow players to be creative with their util. Giving them more options is always better. It's more fun to play, and it brings higher skill expression to the agent. And that's it for the agent changes in this patch, but we do have a massive weapons update. The Outlaw has been performing strongly, and Riot feel it's still too powerful with its back-to-back shots. So they are absolutely gutting it. Recovery going from 0.1 to 0.15 after the first shot. Spread going from 0 to 2.25 after the first shot. And recoil going from 0 to 4.0 after the first shot. Oh my god. You can no longer double shot with the Outlaw. That being said, it still does have its place, especially in the second round buy against broken light buys, eco buys. It's still going to be doing its role that it was intended for. But no longer is that power going to carry over into full gun rounds where you're essentially just getting an op at a huge discount. So expect to see a lot less Outlaws in pro play and in ranked. We're going to highlight how the Sentinel meta has shifted. And firstly, we're going to talk about Deadlock. Deadlock's going to be sliding down to B tier. She's fallen pretty hard as much as agent fluctuations go in Valorant. Even though she received a buff along with the other Sentinels in the previous patch, she didn't get as big of a buff as some of the other Sentinels. And with the Sent being a very Sentinel-friendly map, that puts her a step behind a lot of already good Sentinels on the map, and she's just not keeping up. Someone who's taking a step in the opposite direction, though, is Vito. Vito's buffs go crazy on Ascent. The setups that you can do with this man are nuts. You can be everywhere, all over the map, all at once. You've got lots of great places to hide Interceptor that make it impossible to shoot out. And if teams don't bait it out or play around it correctly, that's just a free round on defense. It's not only cross-map setups that work, it's early action into falling back setups. That new TP time is really, really crisp. And lastly, it would be remiss of us to not talk about Killjoy on Ascent. While beginning to be slightly challenged by Cypher with all of the neon that was running around, Killjoy has re-cemented herself at the top of the Ascent meta. Her buffs brought her a significant increase to her stats on this map. And now let's have a look at the Ascent tier list screen. Things are pretty spread out. For duelists, no changes to Yoru and Iso. This is still Reyna's worst map in the whole pool in the game. Don't pick her on this map. Pick her on the other maps if you want to be brain dead and play Reyna. Just not on Ascent, please. I'm trying to save you some elo. Jet is still the best movement duelist. It's going to be hard to ever beat her being able to dash, to switch and close the door while protecting herself with her smokes. Not much has changed for initiators. Sova is still the top dog. This is Fade's worst map in the pool, and she's still in A tier. That just goes to show you how strong being able to see people through walls is. I have written a whole rant about that that'll be coming out in a future video, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Double check. Sometimes you think, oh yeah, I'm subscribed to these guys, but then it turns out you're not. And while you're there, make sure you turn the bell on so you can get these tier lists hot off the press. As soon as the patch drops, we'll have the tier list out for you. For controllers, Viper is showing some early signs of strength in the higher elos, but I'm pretty sure this is just a low sample size inflating her win rate due to it being the start of the act. And the story of Ascent is that Sentinels are back, baby. Double Sentinel comps are performing the strongest out of all comps at all elo brackets. And that's it for Ascent. Let's head over from the smallest map, Astra. But the common trend is this is the map where you're most likely to see double controllers. So here's a quick rundown of how to play when you've got double controllers. Now the first thing that you need to know about playing double controller is that you never want double smokes. Don't get on the 2025 trend of playing Omen and Astra together. That's garbage. I'm glad we've moved on from that as a community. The Chinese meta was cooking that in 2024 and I thought we'd left it behind, and then people were playing in 2025, and I'm glad now we've all collectively moved on. Anyways, you always want to have at least one wall smoker, one slicer as we call them. It's going to be Viper or Harbor. Now they are very different agents, so depending on which one you have, it's going to change how you play around them, and even more so if you play them together. So if you're playing double smokes with a Viper and a Clove, then Clove is going to be able to be more active around the map, push with your duelists, and just use their smokes for skirmishes and spot fighting, whereas Viper becomes your anchoring player. If you were to swap out Viper for Harbor, then all of a sudden you've got two agents who don't really want to be anchoring in the controller slot. They both want to be more active around the map, getting involved with skirmishes, and Harbor loves using his wall for retakes. And if you play Viper and Harbor together, then you can get really creative with how you make cross sections with your walls to divide up the map in your advantage. This is something that you're definitely going to need to be communicating with a duo or a teammate with, so doing it randomly in ranked isn't always going to be the best idea. And there are some limitations to how you can attack because you only have the two dome smokes. Thankfully now, since Harbor's rework, you can actually use that cove placement reliably and get it into those tough to reach positions. In the past, Viper and Harbor always lacked that consistent, reliable smoke, without crazy lineups, of course. So there you go, there's a quick rundown and introduction for double controllers for you, and let's get into the tier list screen. Kicking off with the duelists, and we didn't have any real hot takes from the last patch, so there's nothing to report too much this patch. Jet is still the most picked rate, over 90% in the high elos, and still like 80% in all other ranks as well. And for the initiators, pretty much everything is the same there still, not too much of a shake-up because all of the buffs were in line with each other. It's only Teo who doesn't have any rechargeable cooldowns for them to reduce the cooldown timer of, so he technically got worse, but he was already pretty bad on the map. So nothing of consequence was lost. As for our controllers, like we just spoke about, lots of viability here on Breeze, a map where smokes are really important. There's so much open space, so having extra smokes, having double controllers is quite good. But Viper can run it solo, and if you know what you're doing on Viper, it's so much better than any other agent on the map. The Sentinels, Chamber and Cypher lead the charge. Cypher bringing that extra lockdown pairs really well with Viper by bringing some extra cages to help with the wall. And Chamber, of course, very good with the sniper. This is a sniper's map. There's a bunch of sniper nests on the map that he can abuse. He can walk forward into elbow and do all sorts of great things. And that's it for Breeze in this video. Let's know, will we see a return to it on Haven? Unlikely to happen in ranked, but a couple of pro teams might pick it up if they're feeling like Yoru and Iso are actually good enough. That comp was less about their individual strengths and more about the options that it would bring you as a team. And this is where the extra time on Yoru's gate crash could be a big factor, because this is a map where Yoru likes to be playing fast and moving around the map and being able to use that gate crash to get extra rotations, but he's often pushing out and making plays while that gate crash is traveling rather than putting it somewhere and then waiting for its moment to use it. And with the nice little buff to ISO, that allows him to play more reactive on the map as well, because he can take a couple of extra risks that he wouldn't be able to otherwise, play in an extra couple of spots that you wouldn't have the time to pull out your double tap, but now you might. So this could be a really good pair to pull out with your duo. Okay, so jumping into the tier list screen now, and I've just hyped up Yoru and Iso a little bit. Why are they doing in B and A? Well, as solo duelists, they aren't as good as what they are paired together. But that's okay, you've got lots of good solo duelist options on Haven, all of the flyers liking being able to dash around to the different points on the map, and Phoenix is still just so strong right now that even as a solo duelist, because you've got so many options to attack, and because he's so helpful on defense, he is an S tier as well. For initiators, what you need is a recon. Sovereign Fade, Sit at the top of S tier like they normally do on most maps, but on Haven it's extra important. And they're both great in their own right, and with so much Phoenix running around you normally have that flash slot covered anyway, and Yoru could even be bringing that flash now as well. For controllers, I'd say that you have 4 real options. Viper and Harbor don't cut it, especially as solo controllers, and Brimstone just can't keep up with the 3 sights and only having 3 smokes. The rechargeable dome smokes are what you need. Asher and Mix are certainly serviceable on the map. The 2 best agents are definitely Clove and Omen. Clove just because it's Clove and their self-heal is really good. Ranked, Omen is the best natural controller. He has the best strength of the actual controller class on the map. His ranked win rate doesn't always show that, but a masterful Omen can absolutely be winning you games. It's just mainly people filling Omen. He's a much more complex character than you realize. Being able to time your paranoias, use TPs effectively is really, really difficult. I think Omen is always reflected really poorly in win rates because filling him means you're playing like half to a quarter of an actual agent. You'll place smokes down, maybe you'll throw some paranoias that'll hit. You're probably not going to use the TP effectively, and you pretty much have no ult. So you do need to be very proficient with him to succeed. And for Sentinels, while they do tend to struggle a little bit on Haven with so much duelist favorability running around, the buffs definitely have helped. Nothing too crazy, Killjoy and Cypher at the top, but they are kind of ballooning themselves further and further away from the other Sentinels. Sage's buff to her heal has been quite nice. Even at higher elos, she's seen an improvement. She's much better in the flex category though, and Chamber has been dropped down to B tier, unable to keep up with the traditional anchoring Sentinels. And that's it for Haven. It's time now to move on to Lotus. So let's have a little spotlight on the duelist class here, because the changes to Iso help bring him to the foreground where he's already been relevant. Has been consistently performing well in high elo, so now that he's received a buff, what can you take away from the high elo players to use in your games? Well, the thing about Iso is that he's very strong on the A side fight. You can use your undercut to suppress and vulnerable the attackers as they try and run out. This pairs particularly well with Raze or anyone with insta-mollies like Viper. Even Neon's stun works really well. The reason it's so good is because of that duel effect in a high octane fight where people are generally committing from the get-go. There's no running back from them. So you're suppressing them, stopping any follow-up util from coming through, and you're also making them vulnerable, making it a fight where people are going to die to 2, maybe 3 bullets, where you've got 2, maybe 3 guns, making it if you and a teammate hit a body shot each on the same target, that target's going to die. And in return, contingency, his wall is really helpful for preventing the same happening back to you. And with the extra space that you now have at Rock, you get a bit more creative freedom with how you position that wall. So my favourite pairing with Iso is Raze for that suppress nade insta-kill, and while Fade is the preferred initiator on Lotus, bringing a Sova that you can throw some shock darts with that suppression as well is quite a nice little trick to have up the sleeve. So let's have a look at the full tier list screen for Lotus now, and what you can see is Raze sitting up the top of the duelist on her lonesome, very, very strong on the map, but followed close behind by Neon, Jet and Iso in the A tier. There's definitely no initiators that are unplayable on Lotus, but there's a lot of them that lack specific skills to make it good. Taylor's really good at fighting for mains and scouting areas, but he's no good for actually getting onto site. Taylor's suppression knife is really good in A main, but the boxiness of the inside sights makes it hard for him to use his flashes. You compare that to the ST agents of Fade and Sky, who both have good util for fighting A main, good util for clearing out and around corners, and for popping into sight. For controllers, it's a similar story to Haven, with Clove and Omen being the 2 most prevalent options in the meta. As for Mix, as people are getting more used to playing around Impulse, his value is falling off. People are shooting out more often, and that value of the stun is not anywhere near it was at first launch. And for Sentinels, you're in a really good spot with all Sentinels on this map. Vice, Deadlock and Killjoy are my recommended ones. Vice and Killjoy have a very similar playstyle, anchoring towards C, holding flank, whereas Deadlock is more rolling with the pack almost as a secondary initiator, can use Grabnet in the A main fight to get some free kills. People never expect that. It's always good for a couple kills every game. And that's it for the Lotus tier list screen for this video. On the map, still all of the agents are in the exact same spot that we had them going into the start of this act. There's no real surprises for us. So we've still got our movement duelists at the top in the duelist class. We still have Sky in the initiator slot, followed closely by a bunch of other initiators, particularly Fade has been doing really well. Clove continues to dominate on split. This has been one of their better maps, with mid being such a prominent place on the map. The player that always suits Clove. And Sage was already the go-to pick for Sentinels nails on split. She got even stronger with the heal buff, only slightly in the higher ranks, but the lower ranks are absolutely loving it. Cypher has been performing well, and Killjoy is notably on the rise too, with her buffs that were quite substantial. Look at our initiators. This was the big focus that we had last week as well, talking about how the initiators are the best position to be closing the doors on the map, and mostly that's played out as expected, but we have a couple of interesting developments, and most notably it's Breach. Breach, I think I underestimated it a little bit, how strong he is going to be on this map. It might also just be that it's the early days of the map and people are still trying to figure it out, so Breach stunning predictable lines that people are just following because everyone plays Valorant is a sheep is really strong. The thing that I did notice about Breach in my initial testing, and probably discounted it a little bit too much, was his ability to stun both A and B main from either A or B link and be able to flash through those walls as well. So he's able to provide two supportive catalytic pieces of util through walls from a different space on the map on both sides of the map. That's pretty strong. The other notable one performing well in the lower elo ranks is Teo. Lots of flash duelists floating around in the meta right now, so Teo isn't as worried about not having a flash as he is in other metas. But also Summit doesn't necessarily need flashes for your site entries. And that sounds kind of weird, but B site is really big and you've got early cover to get to, and A site you've got garden to work through. It's a big wide open space, so you can do a lot of different things to approach that, and also taking A link is really strong. You definitely don't need flashes for that. What's really strong is a fast little drone like your stealth drone. Someone else who's really good at taking that space is Sky, but Summit is definitely shaping up to be more of a recon heavy map as well. Sova and Fade both able to get huge value on the open spaces on both B site and A garden with their recons. So let's move on to the Summit screen, and as you'll see, we've got a few updates. Most notably, we have Yoru performing very strongly, leading the way at the high ranks on a pretty decent sample size. He's got great gate crash locations, he's really strong particularly around both the sites as they've got lots of different compartmentalized spaces within them. And leading the way with him is Neon, who's able to break across those big open spaces with her wall. It definitely was on the fence about verticality. I thought it was going to be more impactful than what it has been. We already touched on the initiators in the highlights. I just mentioned KO quickly, who's turned out to be quite poor as a solo initiator, which he generally is anyway, but it's particularly bad on Summit where having that drone to get through those tight cornery spaces is really, really important. Onto controllers now, and I called it, Clove and Viper are going to be leading the way in this meta. There's less need for regular dome smoke, so Clove is always going to shine in that circumstance in ranked, and it also allows Viper to play as a solo or as a double controller setup. Her numbers are looking incredibly strong early, and if you are a knower, you can definitely be using some of the more techie things to your advantage. Viper can also be used in that Sentinel slot, but Cypher, Sage, and Vice are all incredibly strong on the map as well. Chamber still leads the way as the most popular, of course, but he's vastly outperformed by those three. So let us know, how are you feeling about Summit? I've been really happy with it overall, probably my favourite map to be released since. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.